Hi all, welcome to this Tuesday edition of Off the Post. I was hoping to get this up Sunday night or even into Monday, but just how things played out. And also I just kind of wanted to see how the football itself played out, really, more than anything. Because obviously the biggest talking point of the weekend was VAR. So that's kind of what a lot of this will kind of detail into. So hopefully you enjoyed the one from Saturday. Obviously, as I say, it's just something you can have on in the background, folks. It's not a problem whatsoever. And if you want to get involved, let me know your thoughts on how your team did at the weekend, how your maybe your rivals did, if you were in maybe a cup or whatever it may be. Anything of that nature is obviously appreciated. So obviously the biggest thing over the kind of weekend, not just in the Premier League but across kind of like Europe, was VAR, like the officiating. A lot of bad officiating just in general was the theme for the weekend, and it brings up the debate of, do we need to consider other officials in other leagues, say, to not maybe be influenced by the kind of like decisions that could go on, even though like they will know they'll obviously know the rules of football, but they might not be influenced by it. Or if it's say Man United v Chelsea, or they're not going to be influenced by Man United players, they're not going to be influenced by Chelsea players. So like basically it's a neutral opinion, as it were, and it could be an option, but obviously then it's like logistics, and obviously everyone will then go on about the environmental impact as well if you're bringing say officials from say Italy or Holland, the Netherlands or Spain. And also if you get certain officials like Luhos, for example, when it came like the Europa League game the other night, everyone was obviously debating about him, because obviously try and compare him to like Mike, I'm sure it's Mike Riley they compare him to, or whoever, or John Moss, one of these type of officials. It's like a bit like incompetence really, but when I've watched him in Spain he's generally not too bad, and I generally like him as a ref. But then like my biggest gripe collectively with VAR, and it really annoys me, if I was a fan in the ground watching the game, I would put VAR on the screen, so like the big stadium screens. So if there's like say, depending where, like however many screens are in the stadium, have them up for us all, like everyone in the ground to see, so that way so we're able to see it again. But then for those that are like the refs that have to, like refs or the assistants, depending on who's going to see it, with the pitch side monitor, the minute it's a VAR call, the ref and say the assistants should be straight over to the pitch side monitor. The reason why is so they can basically, while they're getting told in their ear, oh by the way we think it could be a penalty, or it could be a handball, or it's an offside, or whatever it may be, they're like right there, and it's so that they can decide live in living colour, saying right, so you're telling me it's a handball, right, let's look at it live. And so that way he's seen it again and he's discussing it. So they'll say, oh we think Salah's handballed it in the box, we'll just use Salah as the example, Salah's handballed it, like the player's maybe taking a shot, and if Salah's maybe taking a shot, it's maybe hit the player in the leg, but it's came back and it's hit Salah in the hand, and we'll just say it's a weird baffling handball, but they'll be like, oh it's a but we'll say for example Salah scores from the second shot though, he's maybe used his hand unintentionally to control the ball, and he's taken a shot with the rebound to put the ball in the back of the net. It would be something convoluted, but it would be, the reason why we're saying that as well is because we'll say maybe live it doesn't look like he's even hit his hand or his arm, but they've instantly said, oh it's a handball. It's like, but it's like he wouldn't even, like we'll say Salah doesn't even know himself that he's been able to use his hands his hand to control the ball, because it's been pretty much just all in one motion, it's all quick. But if you're there in live and you're saying right, well it's hit his hand, obviously it's just, we'll say he's ran through, he's never meant it whatsoever, but we've got to obviously say, but then that's when you've got to be clear about the rules. Is that a handball? Is it not? But if the officials, we'll say the ref on the pitches gave it as a goal, but the VAR has said no, it's a handball, then that's when you need to be clarity there and then, especially if you've got it right in front of you on the monitor. I absolutely hate when they're standing on the pitch and they've got in the ear, blah blah blah, and that's when they waste the time. It's like they're wasting a couple minutes, when that couple minutes they could easily go over to the pitch side monitor and save time, because that's what annoys the fans. And then you wonder why there's like 8 or 9 minutes of stoppage time in the half, and you're like, well, you could easily have saved like, and especially the 2 minutes they maybe spent talking at the pit in their ear on the pitch. By the time they go to the monitor to actually then look at it, they maybe spend another couple minutes, so you've maybe spent 5 minutes. Because I remember one of the Italian games I watched like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think they wasted I think it was 6.5 minutes just for a simple like it was a handball, but I think they were like trying to say, I think it was a handball, but then was it a foul, but then was it an offside? I think they tried to look at like 3 different things, and I was like, does anybody know what it is? I was like, I thought they haven't a clue, because they were like, the ref's standing there, and then eventually looked at the monitor and it was just windling on, and you thought, what is going on here? And then I remember one of the, like, there's tons of games we can think of off the top of our heads, like A-League's another one there's prime examples where they waste like 5-6 minutes, and you say to yourself, what am I seeing here? It takes 2 seconds to just go to the pitch side monitor and basically say, right, what is the problem? Get it sorted there and then, and if it takes 2 minutes, it takes 2 minutes. If it takes 3 minutes, it takes 3. But it shouldn't be taking 5, 6, 7 minutes. That's kind of where I'm getting at. Because if I'm honest, cricket's got a good system, tennis has a good system, rugby has a good system. Yes, there can be flaws in it at times. Not over, like, cricket really is the only one that I've generally seen the odd hiccup in. It's mainly could be like to do with the bowling, or the umpires gave it wrong initially, and you say to yourself, what is the umpire on? But then obviously the third umpire said like he's out or whatever. It's like, get it looked at. It's like sometimes it's the third umpire that's doing the better job over but sometimes that happens. We're allowed that kind of like mistake. And obviously in rugby it's generally been pretty sound anyway. Yes, there sometimes might be the odd dangerous foul, but most of the time it's pretty conclusive for tries or bad fouls or whatever it may be that needs a bit of attention from a rugby perspective. And I feel football could easily learn, like, if I was honest, like, from a it's even from it's basically from a training point of view, or you enforce it. You say, right, every league that's got VAR, so we'll say Premier League, Ligue 1, Serie A, Bundesliga, etc, etc, you basically run through the leagues and you say, right, there's a pitch side monitor. If you're not going to use it and what's annoying is, I remember during the Euros, they looked at the pitch side monitor, like, I think it was near enough every time there was a VAR call. I'm sure it was like near enough every VAR call, right over at the monitor. I'm like, why is it so easy to do it in a major tournament like the Euros, but they can't do it in their domestic league? I'm like, really? It's like, it's not hard. And I know obviously they don't do it all the time, I think, with the Champions League or the Europa League, but it's just something they could easily do. It's just not hard. Like, I think that's when the fans would appreciate it, and especially if the fans themselves can also get to see it on the main screens, like on like the big screens in the stadium, just so that they can get a view on it as well. Cause it'd bring an interesting discussion into that really as well, if I'm honest. But officiating is certainly needing to be looked at big time, but that's that. So anyways, football results over the weekend. So we'll work back the days, so we'll start off with Monday's games. Obviously the biggest game in a sense of the week of the Monday night games was, in my opinion, probably Galatasaray Beşiktaş. We've got to give it Turkish League the credit. Galatasaray won 2-1 in a very, I wouldn't say the most entertaining game. Like it was a good game of football to watch, but I wouldn't say it was as good as it could be. You've got to remember as well that both teams are not performing well this season. Galatasaray have been in like the bottom half of the table quite a fair bit this season, and like the win put them up to 11th, whereas Besiktas sit in 8th. It is worth noting as well, if Besiktas had won that game, they would have went up to 4th. That just kind of shows how much the swings are in the league table just now. Like Trabzonspor have won the league, that's kind of a given. They're 15 points clear. Konyaspor, surprise package if you want to say, sitting second with 55. Also, relegation way this year is 4 teams get relegated, and as far as I believe, I still think they're sticking to 4 teams getting relegated, with 4 getting promoted. The biggest talking point really in the league is Giresunspor, who have won the last 3 on the spin, along with Kasım Paşa. Just to give themselves a bit of a cushion, they're up to 35 points respectively. Giresunspor's kind of got out the relegation zone ahead of like Altay, mainly Göztepe. Göztepe have lost the last 5 in the spin, and like for the 4 teams to go down, if I'm brutally honest, I'm not surprised. Like if they were to be these 4, like Yeni Malatyaspor look good as down, if I'm honest, with like 9 games to go, 15 points away from Giresunspor and Kasım Paşa. I can't see them making it. Same for Kaiku Rizespor, they're 3 points ahead, so they too seem pretty much good as down. And then from there I would say Göztepe as well, they just can't seem to buy a win or even buy a draw. They're sitting on 27 points, and Altay obviously sit on 29. They're unbeaten in their last 3, 2 wins and a draw. But as I say, Giresunspor and Kasım Paşa to get 6 and 9 points respectively has just kind of helped their cause immensely. And what helps Giresunspor especially is they seem to know how to win a little bit better than a few of the teams around them. They've got 10 wins with 5 draws, so it kind of shows if they'd converted some of those losses to draws, they could easily be higher up the table. And Talaspor's another team that's kind of worth highlighting. They're up to 12th, with their kind of run of form as well. But it's like, if I'm honest, like European spots are up for debate, and even just the league in general, like the rest of the league, because at the moment it'd be funny to see Konyaspor make the Champions League spots. That'd be funny. Be a right change trip. Imagine that next season, Trabzonspor and Konyaspor in the Champions League, compared to like say Fenerbahce or Istanbul Besiktas or Besiktas or Galatasaray, and it hampers the coefficient as well for them, because obviously teams lose their rating over the 5 years or the 10 years, but then also if teams don't perform, it dents it even further, so it just makes it more interesting. But Adana, what I always find interesting is like Karagümrük, Adana Demirspor and Hatayspor. Between like those 3 teams, they've done a lot of wheeling and dealing to try and change the team up as they go along to help them out. And it's just fascinating to watch. But it's just the way that plays out, obviously. So if that keeps ticking over quite nicely. Obviously going over to La Liga with Real Madrid. They inflicted another loss to Mallorca. Mallorca I like to keep a track on. Levante are doing everything in their power to stay up. They are only 6 points away from relegation, from staying up. Alaves obviously 3 points, Cadiz are 1 point. But the game's still to factor in. If I'm honest, when you look at it, it's like for Mallorca's to throw away. And like Granada, for me, I think have probably the hardest run of all the teams. Mallorca seem to have a relatively, like mostly bottom half team draw. They have a couple of the bigger teams still to play, but they have it in their control to maybe just get enough points to keep them up, where it's a different. But what Mallorca, I was reading and a bit of info. It was actually quite interesting. It was to do with, we'll say it was the top 5 leagues and then it was then like the top. It was then like 5 other. It was like 10 leagues, 10, 15 leagues, and it basically went on about teams in their division and how many points dropped over like the course of the season, either being in a leading position or a drawing position. So we'll say the team was 2-0 up at half time but lost 3-2, and say the 2 goals were maybe in the 90th minute, we'll say 90th, and then like 90 plus 9 or something. And Mallorca were in, I think they were like second. I think they were second or third in Europe for most points dropped. I was like, and I think when I was reading it, I think at the time, Mallorca would have been as high as like 6th just now, like 6th or 7th in the league if they had all these points that they hadn't thrown away, because there was games where there was a stint of games. It was like I think it was over a month. They dropped like 10 points. It was like they dropped 3 points. I think it was against like Valencia. They dropped like 2, or it was 2 against them, and then 2, then another. It was like, I think for the 5 games in a trot, they dropped like 2 points or 3 points. I was like, how can you drop points like so consistently? It's unbelievable. But yeah, so that was that. As I said, Benzema was the star of the show. He's kind of just making it look easy. 22 goals, 11 assists for the season. Fair play to him, to be honest. It's pretty academic. Obviously, the league table in general, Sevilla's just kind of not showing any form. 11 draws. That's kind of startling. Like, they could have been. Like, and what makes it more annoying is that the last 5 games they've had Espanyol, Alaves, and Rayo Vallecano they've dropped points to. And Rayo Vallecano they were behind in. Alaves, they had a ton of shots, couldn't score. Obviously, they done the hard work beating Betis. So that was a hard game, and they beat them 2-1. But they just don't seem to. They've only lost 2 games. That's great, but they can't seem to win the easy games, the games that matter. And especially if the 3 draws were 3 wins, they would be up to 62, and only 4 points would still give them half a chance. But 10 points is not. They're never going to make back. Like, there's no danger. The only way they're realistically going to make that back is if they were to win like every game from now, all 10 games, and Real Madrid somewhere along the line drop points. I can't see it. Barcelona's obviously third. They could sneak second, and it would be no surprise there. Atletico sit 4th. Betis is currently sitting 5th in the Europa League spot, and Real Sociedad sitting 6th for the Conference League. Villarreal, for me, might sneak in maybe, but it's definitely, I would say, Bilbao is probably the only other team that could challenge, but they seem to win and lose, so it's going to be fun in games how that one plays out. Obviously, the Russian league still keeps going. Obviously, that's just like, must feel hard for teams to still keep playing, but I suppose they've got to, in a slight extent. But obviously, there's quite a few players that still have obviously left the league and went wherever else. They've maybe went, like Victor, we mentioned that like the other day, like about Clayson and a few others that have left the league. Obviously, another league worth mentioning is like Romania. They're in like the Championship and relegation group. So in the Championship group, Cluj lead that by 7 points over Steaua Bucharest. Like a few leagues, they make no sense to me when they do this Championship relegation thing. The reason being is because usually they do like a weird multiplier or whatever, and I'm like, makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. So it's like Cluj are 7 points clear over Steaua Bucharest, Craiova. Craiova's 3rd, Volunturis 4th, Constanta 5th, Argas 6th. Obviously each of them will get a spot in Champions League, Conference League and Europa League respectively. Sporting, big win for them last night to win 2-0, keeping the pressure on to a slight extent on Sporting. Obviously Porto this season have yet to lose a game, which is some record to go 26 games. Sporting obviously last season went the whole season undefeated in the league. Could Porto do it this season would be some achievement. Benfica obviously sitting 3rd with 6 points behind Sporting. from there it looks like Braga, Gil Vicente are 4th and 5th. Like, fair play Gil Vicente's getting into 5th. Relegation battle, quite an interesting, like, Belenese, obviously the situation with them's quite an interesting one. Moriens, Tondela, Aruca. Vizella's doing just enough to keep themselves at the moment, but obviously they need some wins. And obviously everyone's got, there's no game issues, but like with due to COVID or anything like that, so there's none of that factor. But no, there's definitely, and like Boavista's just doing enough as well to 15 draws. Like, it's scary. How can you draw 15 times this season but only have 7 losses? You've got as many losses as teams in the top half of the table. Like Guimarães at 6 and have 10 losses, and Boavista have 7, so it's like fair play. But yeah, Porto, I think at the moment should do enough, but obviously the draws is where it's going to be a factor, because it is worth highlighting that Porto drew to Sporting and they also drew to Gil Vicente. That was an interesting one in itself. But long way to go, still in the league, and yeah, that feels pretty academic. Italy, obviously, well, in fact we should go to Poland before we jump to Italy. With Poland, what I find quite startling this season is Legia Warsaw and Wisła Krakow. With Wisła, they're obviously now in the bottom 3, but Legia Warsaw for a period were like bottom of the league, and we mean bottom of the league, which you wouldn't think. They've only drawn 1 game all season, which is actually the worst in the league. Next worst is Wisła Płock at 3, but they have like the most losses in the league at 14. Yes, they've won the last 3 in the spin, but they're no way guaranteed safety. But people assumed that this wouldn't be the case. If I'm honest, the league table itself's a bit of a surprise, because it's Rako are top of the league from Pogoń Szczecin. Lech Poznan have kind of drifted off badly the last 3 of their 5 games, 2 losses and a draw. So they've went from being top of the league to now sitting 3rd. Radomak Radon, obviously 4th, Lechia Gdansk. Gornik Zebra obviously have Podolski in their ranks. But the likes of Jagiellonia, Legia, Slazak, Warsaw, Wisła, Krakow, they're all bottom half of the table. Like, I wouldn't have said these teams would be, and it's just because I think with like Jagiellonia, you're so used to seeing them in like the top half of the table. Obviously Legia, you're so used to seeing them challenge for the title. Wisła is the same, and obviously like Ternalicia and Lesna are looking maybe down, and then obviously the 3rd team's up for debate still from, say, Legia. Like, Legia could be safe because they've still got a game in hand, and the game in hand is obviously against Ternalicia, but we'll see how that one plays out. Obviously, Italy, Lazio, big win last night. Obviously a penalty from Immobile. He had a goal disallowed for offside in like start of the second half, puts them back into 5th. Like, the league title is no way signed, sealed and delivered in Italy. Like AC, Napoli, and I even said Juventus could sneak in. Like, it could easily happen. What saves Inter at the moment is they have a game in hand. Like, they win the game in hand, they go to 62, and like, it might help, it might not. It's just going to be fun and games. 62 points. What goes against Inter is they've just drawn too many games, and you could apply the same to Juventus. For like the rest of the European spots, like Atalanta this season just haven't been as firing. I think a mix of injuries, luck against them, and discipline and other bits and bobs. Obviously Fiorentina's fighting hard to try and get in a European spot. Verona's and Sassuolo are trying their hardest, but I think they might just fall short this season, if I'm honest. I think realistically at the moment the top 4 signed, sealed and delivered. 5th and 6th is I would say a 4-horse race between Lazio, Roma, Atalanta, Fiorentina. For going down, could Genoa stay up? That is the interesting debate. They can't buy a win. They can buy a draw. That is about all. That is much as what they can do. They've got Torino in their next game, which is on Friday, and they need to win it. If they can win it, it gives them a bit of hope. Like at the moment, Calgary, Sampdoria, certainly aren't safe. Even Spezia's not safe. Spezia's not safe, even though they won at the weekend against Calgary 2-0. They have 16 losses. They like these kind of teams aren't safe. Like Salernitana, I feel are down. Genoa might sneak it. They could because of the draws. They seem to know how to not lose a game. Like 12 games they've lost still. From if they'd converted more of those losses to wins or more of the draws to wins, they'd be in a much healthier position. But they just can't seem to score. That's their problem. 22 goals scored, 47 conceded. But at the moment, I think the bottom three could be the bottom three. But we will see how that plays out. Ireland, obviously, that's been like I think they're trying to play like 2 games a week just now, or at least it feels like that. But St Patrick's obviously sit top of the league with 12. But Dundalk and Shamrock Rovers we've been so used to for so many years, recent years especially, being like top of the table and kind of like home and hose. But Dundalk obviously 1 win, 5 draws, but yeah, that's kind of just goes about its business. Obviously, the result of the weekend there was Sligo winning 3-1. Germany, obviously, like between all the divisions, it's like the best one of the lot is the second tier. To keep an eye on. Like second tier is most exciting solely because of anyone could still go up. No one seems to want to win the not just games but to get themselves up. Like there's 7 points separating first to Hamburg, and Darmstadt sit top of the league just now. St. Pauli sit second, Werder Bremen third, and they're all on 48. Nuremberg are sitting 4th, Schalke 5th. Schalke got a big win at the weekend, Heidenheim as well. Hamburg just can't seem to buy a win because they seem to draw them all. But they've only, and what's funny is they only had 2 losses a couple of weeks ago, and now they've lost like 2 in the spin. It's like they just don't want to seem to go up. That's like Hamburg in a nutshell. But hey ho. Ingolstadt look good as down along with U. Dynamo Dresden trying their hardest to maybe stay up. Then it becomes a debate of does Sandhausen go down? But mind there is a playoff game, so it's like unless they kind of decide at the last minute, be like, nah, we're not giving a playoff game. But Sandhausen, Hanover, hosting Kiel was quite a shock because for so many recent seasons, hosting Kiel we're so used to seeing them in like the top like half dozen teams, and then falling short in the playoff game, for example. So, but this season obviously they've lost 4 in the spin, and the funny thing is if they'd won the 4 in the spin, they themselves would be in contention. They would actually be 6th. So it shows what 4 losses on the trot does. And what's worth noting is that 2 of the games they lost a goal margin, but in 5 and 7 goal thrillers respectively. If I was to be honest, who I think would go up, I would kind of lean towards Bremen and St. Pauli maybe for the automatic spots, and I think Darmstadt would maybe be the 3rd place team in the playoff. But it comes down to this weekend's games solely because Werder Bremen play Darmstadt, St. Pauli play Heidenheim, Schalke play Hanover, Nuremberg obviously have Dynamo Dresden, Hamburg have Dusseldorf. So it's going to be fun in games how this one kind of plays out. It could be a fair swing come this time next week. Obviously the Premiership, biggest debate obviously was Crystal Palace holding out Man City. Fair play to them, to be honest. Like 0-0. For Crystal Palace it kind of helps their push towards a top half finish, especially since Aston Villa and Southampton both lost respectively. And I think it's what's starting is that Southampton had such great home form, and suddenly in the last two games it's kind of just disappeared, like against Newcastle and Watford respectively. But Crystal Palace unbeaten in their last four, try to do everything right to kind of keep themselves in a good spot. They shouldn't go down. Like, the only way they're going to go down is if they suddenly can't win a game, and suddenly 34 points is the bottom of the table, and I can't really see that. I remember the debate going about is, could 30 points be all that's needed this season, and if I'm honest, it would not surprise me. Like Watford doing just enough maybe, because that was a big win over Southampton, but obviously they have Liverpool in their next game. Everton Newcastle on Thursday night is going to be a big one. If Everton were to pull a win out, then it makes it interesting again. It looks like it's Norwich, Burnley, Watford. Leeds getting a big win in the dying minutes, and obviously they have Wolves, who are obviously trying to get a European spot. And what goes against Wolves really this season is just losing too many games. That's all that's really went against them, because they could easily be challenging for a Champions League spot. That's what goes against them. They've lost 11 games, and even West Ham, you could apply the same logic to. And obviously you apply it to Tottenham because they've lost 10 games. But then you could have said, well, what goes for Tottenham's favour is they've got 2 games in hand on Manchester United, West Ham and Wolves. Win the 2 games in hand, you're suddenly at 51, and then you say to yourself, well, 51, obviously you're looking at 5th, because you can't, like, realistically Arsenal have 3 games in hand on everyone around them, because they've got 26 played with Leicester and Everton, so they realistically could determine their own fate. They could go as high as 3rd, or they could remain 4th depending how the game's played. They're obviously on a good win. Liverpool are obviously, if they win the game against Arsenal, Liverpool v Liverpool, yeah right, Graham, it would go to 69, and it's only a point behind basically Manchester City, but we'll see how that plays out, obviously. But that's one. And then for those that like their I love the coefficient people. I love them. Those that for any league. The one talking point I've seen a few people talk about was Austrian league, solely because of LSK Linz, who are in the basically what is the relegation group, but they are currently 7th in the league for it. So they're like, when obviously they split the 12 teams, they do like what happens in Scotland, but the winner of the relegation group goes into the Conference League playoff round. And it is worth noting as well, like the coefficient will get hampered a little bit depending obviously who was to make what spots for the championship group. If it's not like the usual teams, for example, like we'd assume it'll be Salzburg should be academic in name, but then it's like Austria Vienna, Sturm Graz, Rapid Vienna. There's going to be like 6 teams in Europe potentially, but it just depends where they all kind of get like placed, as it were, and how because Scotland are like at the moment could be like 8th or 9th, sorry, and obviously the biggest battle is with Austria. That's like the next big one, because obviously Serbia is the next kind of challenge as well. If Scotland and Netherlands respectively win their games, it makes it all the more interesting. Then from like other leagues like Championship, just to kind of touch on that briefly, Fulham look good as up, and I kind of said Bournemouth got to win their game in hand to kind of keep the promotion charge going. Bottom 3 I still feel pretty set on, but at the moment Reading are kind of hinting that they could be the team going down, solely because they can't seem to keep a clean sheet. Yes, they can score, but they can't seem to defend either. But that kind of, I think the league looks pretty academic in all the different positions. European battle for like Champions League, Europa League, Conference League, still up for debate. Lille trying their hardest, even though they drew at the weekend, which didn't help their cause. St Etienne trying their hardest, but Lorient and Troyes made big results in recent games to kind of do everything their power to stay up. Obviously puts St Etienne in third bottom, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting battle. At the moment I still feel Marseille, Nice, Rennes, Strasbourg could be an interesting one in Europe. I think this would be their first time in Europe for a long time, so fair play to them. Dortmund, big win, even though it's only 1-0, but it keeps the pressure on Dortmund and Bayern Munich, and even Dortmund to an extent if you think about it, because Dortmund have a game in hand, and winning the game in hand they're only 4 points, and Bayern just now just can't seem to buy a win. And Union Berlin might turn up, they might not. It's, you know, obviously everyone just seems to not necessarily scared. It's just they're giving it a go. So fair play to them, and we'll see how that one plays out. Augsburg, big one at the weekend, obviously, putting them from out the bottom three to get in to like a safer spot. BFL not safe. Stuttgart obviously drew. Hertha Berlin just can't seem to buy a win, and I can't see it happening either against Hoffenheim, who are kind of trying their hardest to get into the Champions League spots. Bayer Leverkusen getting a loss that they can't really afford to have, and a bit of a bad run lately, if I'm honest. Freiburg doing their hardest, sit currently in 5th, but it's going to be, like, I would say top 6 are a given. It's just a case of where does Bayer Leverkusen, Leipzig, Freiburg, Hoffenheim all finish. That's where it's going to come down to. Obviously we've touched on second Bundesliga, and briefly the third Bundesliga is pretty academic with Magdeburg 9 points clear. But they're like basically, it's 15 points clear of like Braunschweig. If you were to factor in like the spots that like go up for basically promotion, obviously if there's the playoff game for Saarbrücken, who have done really well, sitting third, fair play to them. But like for relegation in there, I think Haveles, Turkoglu, Munchen, Verl could be the 3, but Zwickau and Victoria Berlin definitely just can't seem to buy a win lately. But Würzburger definitely trying their hardest. We'll see how those play out, obviously. Then obviously the last kind of key bit really for football that we've not really touched on, obviously, is the Scottish Cup. Hibs and Hearts and Celtic Rangers. Obviously it's taken us nearly 40 minutes to kind of get into that, but it's no surprise really that they do that for a semi. Obviously the biggest point I've said, and I'll mention it later again probably nearer the time, is why not do it at Hampden for Celtic Rangers and make it Murrayfield for Hibs and Hearts, especially since Murrayfield's got a bigger capacity, and you'd rather have 67,000 fans at Murrayfield when you'll probably get a sellout at Hampden probably for Hibs and Hearts, but surely you'd make more money having an extra 10,000 fans like collectively over whatever you'd get for Hampden. I know that it's because of obviously buying it outright out of Queen's Park and all that, and they've got to get their money's worth. But does Edinburgh fans really want to travel through to Glasgow? Might as well save a fortune on the day. But yeah, that's one of those. It brings up that debate anyway. I guarantee in a few weeks' time the same debate will get brought up, or it'll be brought up near enough every day between now and the semi-final. Like, why is it not getting played at Murrayfield and Hampden? Just do it from a logistics point of view, and yep, that's what happens with that. But we'll see what happens though. As I said, time will tell, of course. So let me know what your thoughts are on the football that's been the last few days. Obviously tonight's football will delve into like tomorrow and take it from there really. So hopefully you found this insightful as usual. As I said, it's just something always good to have in the background and just a bit of fun as well. So take it easy all, thanks for watching and listening evening, and I will catch you all later.